Got nothing quippy. Let's just get into the review. I just finished watching Disclaimer, which is an upcoming, well, I think as of the recording of this, it has already come out, or maybe at least episode 1 and 2 or something like that. It's called Disclaimer. It's a series. Did I say that already? I'm sorry, I'm a bit distracted. I'm getting messages on my phone while I'm trying to record. It's an Apple TV series starring Cate Blanchett, Kevin Kline, Sacha Baron Cohen. And I just found out about it. I don't even know, I was on the Apple website for getting screeners, and somehow I noticed this. And I was interested because of Cate Blanchett. I like her acting. So I started watching it, and it was interesting because it starts off, well, first off, let me start off by giving you guys the synopsis. It's basically about Cate Blanchett's character. She's a journalist who has made her career or built her reputation on exposing the misdeeds of people, I guess, like in power or whatever. It just takes place in the UK. And she receives a novel from someone she doesn't know. It's sent to her in the mail. And the problem is she recognizes things in this story that have to do with a secret in her past. And this sets in motion a whole chain of events revolving around her and the person who sent the novel and the events from many years ago. When the first episode starts off, it's following 3 different people. It follows Cate Blanchett in present day. It follows Kevin Kline's character in sort of present-ish day, kind of leading up to the events that take place in the present. And Kevin Kline's playing a British person. Believe it or not, I had to look it up to verify that he was American. He was indeed American. I was pretty sure he was, but you know how you'll be watching an actor for years, and it's not until a while later that you realize they're an Aussie or a Brit or something? Anyway, he's American, but he's playing a Brit in here. I thought he did a good job. UK folks, let me know how he does. And then it also is following a young couple vacationing in Italy. And at first, you're just watching, it's just like going from scene to scene with these different people. And I have to admit that in the very beginning, I wasn't really drawn in. This was not one of those things that just pulled you in and hooked you from the very beginning. It took about halfway through that episode or more before I started to really be drawn into the story of what was happening. Eventually, you realize the connections between these 3 different groups of people. And as the story goes on, and there are 7 episodes, each episode is about an hour long. So not a terribly long watch, and this is a limited series, so it's not like there's going to be a season 2 or anything like that. As the story unfolds throughout each episode, there is jumping forward and backward in time. We've got present day, then the events of the past. Eventually, everything, of course, comes to a head in the final episode. Overall, I was quite satisfied. It felt like a very fitting conclusion, sort of. I do have a couple caveats to that, but it felt solid pretty much all the way through. Only had a few stumbly missteps, a bit at the end. Nothing huge, nothing to detract really from an overall enjoyment. This is basically a revenge story. That's how I was describing it when I was talking about it on Twitter, because I was wanting to talk about this with someone, but it wasn't out yet, so I couldn't talk about it. I really enjoyed how these stories wove together. I forgot to mention also that this was directed by Alfonso Cuarón. He also adapted it. I believe it says it was written and directed, yes, by 5-time Academy Award winner Alfonso Cuarón. It's based on a 2015 novel of the same name written by Renee Knight. I have not read that. I do not know how this compares to the novel. If you guys have read it and then you watch this, please let me know how it compares favorably or unfavorably, whatever. Among some of the other things I enjoyed, the acting. Cate Blanchett was fantastic in here. Kevin Kline was very good. It was surprising to see Sacha Baron Cohen in a serious role. Granted, I don't really watch a lot of his stuff, but I know of his Borat series or movies, whatever. And I know he's fundamentally kind of a comedic actor, but he played a really serious role in here, and I thought he did a good job. I have no experience with watching him in anything else of this magnitude or of this seriousness. So I don't know, maybe he always had it in him, but I thought he did really, really good in here. I enjoyed the roller coaster of emotions also that this show generated. It takes you on this interesting journey, and there's some stuff I want to say, but I think I really should refrain from dropping any hints, because if I do, then you might start to piece things together a little bit more quickly, only because you've had that nudge. So I'm not going to get into those sorts of details. I'll just say that this was a pretty solid tale of revenge, and it was very well acted, directed very well. Once I really did fully get into the story, which, like I said, took about halfway into the first episode, I just was interested to keep going and keep going and keep going. I did pace myself, so I didn't just blaze right through it. I started watching the last episode before I left New Jersey, and I finished it up. Like, I got halfway through it, and then I finished it up just moments before I started recording this. So I took my time with it and enjoyed each episode, savored each episode as I watched them. Oh yes, there was something I was going to add. There are a lot of rather explicit scenes of intimacy, nudity, and scenes of certain acts being performed. So if this is something that's a problem for you, I'll just warn you about that right now. I personally feel like such explicitness is not necessary in films and TV shows, and I felt the same way about this. But while it's not anything I would want to watch with my parents or with my children, I was fine watching it on my own. So that's just kind of a heads up on that sort of thing. It was not anything that diminished my enjoyment of the overall story, just because the story itself and the characters were so captivating and so interesting. And I was just very curious to see how was this going to play out. And so it was easy to overlook that sort of thing. There were some things that I wrote down in the con category. One is not a con anymore, because I was having questions about certain things in the story, and eventually all of that was cleared up. So it's not a con anymore. And I will not specifically mention that because that will be some heavy spoilers. There were other issues, sort of continuity or issues of convenience that happened. There's a picture of Cate Blanchett on her husband's desk with their child when he was very young. And yet when they showed flashback scenes of the child at that age, Cate Blanchett was not the actress playing her younger self. It was a totally different actress. So that kind of felt a little mismatchy. There was another incident where a person was trying to get to a specific place very quickly. They were being held up in traffic. They were trying to phone someone. This particular person wasn't taking their calls. So something that greatly aggravated me was, why didn't you just call this location that you were trying to get to and put the word in there? Little tiny things like that. It's nothing major. Then there was another thing that happened at the end, or it was basically kind of a situation that was developing, and it was some stuff that was said, and there was a character who used a specific rationale towards their inability to forgive someone, and the rationale that was used was not logical, did not make sense, especially when that same rationale was sort of used in the opposite with another person. I know that sounds vague, but if I get super specific, that will ruin the effect, and I don't want to do that. And then there was another thing where there was a person who was recounting events, and very conveniently after that, a certain thing happened, which was rather predictable, highly convenient, the timing. And while I understood that this thing had to happen, like I said, the timing of it was just a bit too kind of predictable, highly convenient, that sort of thing. These are minor quibbles, you guys, So just take that with sort of a grain of salt-ish. I was just wanting to mention some things that did stand out to me a little bit, little teeny tiny pebbles in the road. But other than that, to me, this was a really, really good story. It's not action-packed. This is like a character sort of drama, situational drama thing. So it's not something that's super fast-paced. It's very riveting though. And if you like Cate Blanchett, I recommend watching this just for her. I'm glad I was able to check this out, and I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to talk about it with you guys. If you happen to watch it, let me know what you think. I don't know what the deal is with Apple TV. It feels like their material doesn't get as widely noticed as other platforms like Netflix or maybe Amazon. Some people complain about the marketing or lack thereof when it comes to these shows because the material on Apple, it's pretty high quality stuff. So it would be a shame if their content doesn't take off more, because I feel like the stuff on here that I have watched so far has been well worth the viewing time. Also feels like it's not being talked about enough, and that's a shame. Okay, I don't have anything else to say about disclaimer, so I'm wrapping this one up and we'll catch you in the next video. Bye.